Ben, that's probably a good background to bring you in here.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll start off with a question, which is the US State Department deliberately attacking the US Constitution and trying to undermine free speech? Let's find out. We're going to start by talking about Nina Jankowicz, who we've spoken about extensively over the past couple of years, the former disinformation czar for the Biden administration, seen here a couple of weeks ago in Brisbane in Australia, talking about propaganda, on which she is an expert. And she was there to talk about this report that she's just produced called It's Everyone's Problem, Mainstreaming Responses to Technology-Facilitated Gender-Based Violence, TFGBV. And I'm not going to say that too many times because it's a bit of a tongue twister, but I am, first of all, going to define what it means. So this comes from the report. We can see here that TFGBV is any act that is committed, assisted, aggravated, or amplified by the use of information communication technologies or other digital tools that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, psychological, social, political, or economic harm or other infringements of rights and freedoms, which is an extraordinarily expansive definition for anything, but actually what it amounts to is people saying hurty words on the internet that we don't agree with, as I'll explain to you as we go along. Now, the report includes a case study focused on this woman, Julie Inman Grant, who is the E-Safety Commissioner for the Australian government, which is why Nina Jankowicz was doing a tour in Australia. So Inman Grant is in an unelected position. She's a civil servant. She's also an American citizen, and we can find out a bit more about her from her profile on the World Economic Forum website. So let's have a little look. In the role that she's fulfilling, she leads the world's first government regulatory agency committed to keeping its citizens safer online. So Australia are taking the lead on this. Her career began in Washington, D.C., working in the US Congress and the nonprofit sector before she took a role at Microsoft, where she spent 17 years focused on government relations. So she's very much in that public-private partnership space. She also worked at Twitter, where she set up and drove the company's policy, safety, and philanthropy programs across Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia, which led her into living in Australia, where she is today. And in 2020, the World Economic Forum and Apolitical, who we've spoken about previously, appointed the commissioner as one of the Agile 50. So agile is a word used in digital innovation. She's very much in a digital position, and they described her as being one of the world's most influential leaders, revolutionizing government, right? So really, in the hot seat internationally in the transformation of our governments. Now, let's go back to the story in the report. So we, as I said, there's a case study here, and they're talking about a specific instance that happened to Julie Inman Grant. So Australia's E-Safety Commissioner woke up for the 7th day in a row as the target of technology-facilitated gender-based violence. The abuse had begun a week earlier on April 15th when she issued a takedown notice to the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, requiring that the platform remove a video of a violent stabbing of a bishop that had taken place at a church in Wakeley in Australia. So it was a video of this gentleman here, Bishop Mar Mari Emmanuel, who was stabbed while delivering a sermon in church by a young man of Lebanese descent. And the concern was that this would spark off racial tensions, and the demand was put into Twitter that the video be taken down. Elon Musk refused to take it down, and they ended up in a legal battle, right? So it's actually escalated quite considerably. And Grant received a tidal wave of criticism online about censorship, which, for my money, is really par for the course. If you're in a government position looking at freedom of speech issues and you're demanding that things be taken down from the internet that, frankly, I think of public interest, then you're going to receive some criticism. That's just par for the course. But this has now become a central safety issue, essentially, for the Australian government, right? So if you go to the E-Safety Commissioner's Office website, on the front page, we can see here they're talking about preventing gender-based violence online. And what is essentially kind of a personal beef between Musk and Grant has now been elevated into something that is front and centre in Australian policy. But also, more importantly, in some ways, American policy, right? So Twitter is a US company and a global digital platform. And just pulling on the report again here, I can see that Inman Grant noted that the lack of regulation, particularly in the United States, is hurting women around the world. Until the US actually regulates, she said, the rest of the world is going to be fighting a losing battle. So that is essentially a demand to rewrite the US Constitution in order to prevent government officials from being subjected to criticism online. Now, I know they dress it up as being a much more expansive issue than that, and this issue of technology-facilitated gender-based violence. But what she's talking about is the criticism that she personally received on the internet for demanding that this information be censored, and is trying to use this to agitate a change not just to Australian law, but also to US law and international law as well. Really, really crucial to understand, not least because of who is behind the report. All right, so let's have a little look at this organisation, Vital Voices Global Partnership. It's a non-profit founded, according to its website, on the simple idea that nations and communities cannot move forward without women's voices in leadership positions. We invest in women leaders who are taking on the world's greatest challenges, from gender-based violence to the climate crisis, economic inequities, and more. It's an international network. It's funded by global corporations and philanthropic groups, including Airbnb, Avon, Bank of America, Bumble, the Gates Foundation, Google, Uber, Comcast, who owns Sky News in the UK, who I'll talk about a little bit later on. So this is corporate and philanthropic money. They are extraordinarily wealthy as an organization. So in 2021, they opened a global headquarters building in Washington, D.C., in this 8-story townhouse right in the center of US imperial power, in walking distance to the White House, the US Capitol, the World Bank, the Aspen Institute, the IMF, Black Lives Matter Plaza. These are the organizations and buildings and locations that Vital Voices reference in their own literature. So this is how they're positioning themselves as being part of this ecosystem, really importantly. They've had an enormous reach over the past 28 years. They've been operating for 28 years now. They claim to impact 3 million people each year. They're operating in 185 countries and territories, and they have 20,000 change makers across their global network. Change makers being a very important word, right? So this is common purpose language. These are the networks that we see who are radically shifting governance and economic activity and culture across the Western world. And they're doing that from the very top levels. So people on their advisory board include leaders in global politics and global business, including from some of the companies that we've already mentioned, but also they're recruiting very actively from younger generations as well, with networks and chapters and clubs popping up in universities across the US and further afield, right? So they're actively recruiting into their program. And what does that program deliver for the young women who are engaged on it? Well, quite a lot, actually. So this is, again, from their website, and they talk about holistically investing in women leaders, providing an enabling environment, giving them leadership training, providing visibility and credibility through awards programs and that kind of thing, providing access to a global network, giving them backing in crisis situations, providing them with access to money so that they can bring their vision to life, shift culture. So we're on the outside of this thing now, outside of this diagram now. We can see that these women in the program are going to shift culture. That's the stated aim here. They're going to reinvest in their communities and beyond, and they're going to gain global recognition, right? So this is women, young women and less young women who want to be at the center of the global conversation. I think that draws on a very particular type of individual. But let's hear a little bit about them from this short film produced in 2011.
Now, women worldwide in many areas of society are diligently working to improve the quality of their lives and the lives of other women. And each year, the non-governmental group Vital Voices Global Partnerships recognizes some of these women. This year's recipients for the 10th annual Vital Voices Global Leadership Awards hail from India, Israel, Afghanistan, Burma, and Cameroon. They are working to halt the trafficking of girls, brokering peace between Israelis and Palestinians, breaking into the male-dominated field of carpentry, maintaining the fight for justice, and running for president. All to make life better for women and children.
So again, this is an international network which is purely about women helping other women. And the thing I find slightly confusing about this is where are all the men in these countries? Now, I'm not suggesting for a second that men aren't responsible for acts of violence or anything like that. Absolutely they are. But just excluding them completely from the conversation seems counterproductive to me. But let's find out a bit more about one of the founders of Vital Voices, Hillary Clinton.
United States Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, a strong advocate for women's rights and a founder of Vital Voices, commended the recipients' achievements. Acknowledging that there's still work to be done, Secretary Clinton pledged to continue advancing women's causes.
This is not only an urgent foreign policy challenge for me. It is not simply a social justice issue, the most important, in my view, for the 21st century. But it is a personal mission as well.
So, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is one of the founders of this organization, absolutely critical, as we'll come on to in a moment. And then let's finally hear from Alice Nelson, who is the Chief Executive of Vital Voices.
We invited 500 of the next rising generation, young women and girls. Are you out there? I hope that you will leave here knowing that you have the power, you have the voice, and you also have the responsibility to stand up and make change.
So young women and girls, actually, she says they're shifting culture, wielding power, and making change. That was Alice Nelson. As I said, she is the chief executive of Vital Voices. She's been there pretty much since its inception 25 years ago. And before that, she was working on the Vital Voices Global Democracy Initiative program as the deputy director at the US State Department. So this was initiated the US State Department under the Clinton administration has built a global network of female change makers who are actually, many of them are actually currently engaged in agitating to rewrite US legislation and suppress free speech.
Ben, thank you very much. Lots to think about there. But let's move on. If you like what the UK column is doing, we need your financial support, and that is best done as joining us as a member. So if you get online, have a look, you can make a donation. Of course, that helps us, but it's the monthly memberships that count. So if you're watching, you like what we're doing and you'd like to support us, then do think about that monthly membership. You can also do an annual membership, or you can be bold and take a lifetime membership, which many people have, and we're immensely grateful. You can, of course, buy something from the shop. It's getting colder here in UK at least, so you might like one of those hoodies. And we're also working with Clyde DeCarl, who's, of course, advertising his health products, which you can buy via the site, and that helps us. Now, we'd also like to say, share the material. This is why we do it. So we like this little visual of Bob Moran with Charles and Mike. But, of course, all these little links here show the comments, and it shows where these things are linked. So you can help us enormously by helping to spread the information that we're putting out with recognition of the column. Oops, beg your pardon. Let's just go back one. So we've got coming out tomorrow. This is Mike's interview with David Segal, who did the climate change conferences, which were very successful. In this one, they're going to be talking more about health-related issues. And this one here is with Ben and Diane. Ben, I don't know whether you'd like to give a little bit of commentary about this little interview you two did.
Sure thing. Yeah. So Diane and I had a fantastic conversation about the attack on higher education and what needs to be done to defend our academic institutions and to rebuild them ultimately in a way that is for the benefit of our society. Ultimately, I mean, we're talking about really fundamental civilizational problems that we've got and how to fix them. And this is at the Pattern Substack, which is one of the projects that I run, and you can find that at Pattern18, pattern18.substack.com. It's a great listen. There's a bunch of other stuff on there as well.
Okay, excellent. So thank both of you for doing that. Now, reminder that we do still have some tickets for the UK column on location in Bristol on the 19th. Not many. So if you haven't bought a ticket, you've been thinking about it, we'd love you to come and join us. Get online and make that purchase. It is going to be a phenomenal event. I was told yesterday Kim Isherwood from Public Child Protection Wales is going to come and join us as well. So if you haven't got a ticket, I'm saying to you, think you should get on and get a ticket before those actually disappear.